Good evening. My name is Don Barber. I'm with AT&T, and I'm the chairman of the Paulding Chamber Government Affairs Committee. On behalf of the Chamber, I'd like to welcome everyone to the candidate forum tonight. Appreciate you being here. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. And I'd like to introduce our moderator this evening. The moderator is Terry Lawler, who is the Executive Director of the Regional Business Coalition. The Regional Business Coalition includes participation from chambers of commerce, including the Paulding Chamber, we're a member of the RBC, and business organizations throughout the Metro Atlanta area. The RBC provides a unified voice on some of the most critical public policy issues facing our region, including transportation, water, and air quality. We appreciate Terry serving as our moderator this evening, and I'm going to turn it over to him. Thank you, Terry.
Yeah, thank you, Don. I'm going to move this a little to the side. I was told that we could get some feedback, and I got an idea of folks out here that want to hear a whole lot of screeching tonight. It's late in the evening. Again, thank you all for taking the time to come out here to exercise our democratic freedoms. I know a lot of y'all have been active on campaigns, but a lot of just regular citizens are here tonight in an effort to learn more about these races. The primary, I think as everyone here knows, is July the 31st. Registered to vote, please go do so. The date to get absentee ballots is actually already started. For those who want to vote by absentee, you can request an absentee ballot already. And hopefully we'll see everyone at the polls on July 31st. Let me just kind of cover, first of all, what the rules of the game are. There'll be the same rules for every race that's up here tonight. And the questions will be put forward tonight have been carefully compiled to address the most important issues of the business community relating to the overall well-being and future of Paulding County. Questions will be randomly selected and will be asked of the candidate at bat without deference, bias, or foreknowledge. And the questions are actually in these little glasses right here. So it's kind of like pick one out and I'll read the question to them. The Paulding Chamber of Commerce does not in any way endorse or support any candidates over any others. Excuse me. However, the Chamber does and will take a position on any issue that affects the common good of its members, the community that it serves, or the overall mission of the Chamber. When the candidates come up, this is the order that we will be dealing with in terms of the question. The candidate who picks the question at random out of their fishbowl there will get 1 minute and 30 seconds to respond to the question. Excuse me, we'll have 1 minute and 30 seconds for opening remarks. When they look at the question, they'll have 2 minutes to respond to the question. Any opponents after that will get 30 seconds to respond to the same question. And then the candidate who got the original question will then have 30 seconds at the end for a rebuttal. This will allow every candidate to have an opportunity to respond to the question. I'll also point out that when there are multiple candidates, that not the same candidate will go first every time. So every candidate will have an opportunity to go first, and the others will have opportunities for rebuttal so that there's no advantage one way or other for the candidates. I will ask when the races come for each one to come up, and we will ask the questions of them. I ask that please be respectful, no comments from the audience. I think it's really important that we have some good decorum here, respect the candidates, that they are taking a lot of their time to serve or offer themselves to service to the general public, and we need to appreciate the fact that they are doing that. At the last forum that I did here, there was a statement that was made by one of the candidates for the office. I want to let the candidates know this up front, that even though we have these questions here and you're answering them, I will take the prerogative to, if I hear something I think may be a stretch or something that may be a little bit of an exaggeration, to maybe ask you to clarify that. So just to forewarn, any comments that appear to be a little bit misleading or outlandish, you may be called on me to clarify that with, where did you get that from, where are the statistics, or where do you get that comment that you made. So we're going to try to be mindful of that, but I also want to let the candidates know that they may be questioned by me if I believe there needs to be something clarified on that. The first candidates for office will be for the Paulding County Board of Commissioners. So for the candidates for the Paulding County Board of Commissioners, excuse me, post 1, please come forward. Thank you. I think that will work fine. You can speak into that. First of all, before we even get started, I've been asked to ask this question of every candidate, so be ready, other candidates. Are you a member in good standing with the Paulding County Chamber of Commerce?
Yes, I am.
There we go. Okay. With your opening comments, as you make them, would you also please state what your qualifications for this officer and in your platform as part of your opening statement, please? And you have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, 1 minute and 30 seconds, I'm sorry. I'll get this right.
So much fun to go first. I am Dave Carmichael, a 33-year resident of Paulding County. And the first thing I'd like to do is to salute you. You make the difference. Because you care, you're here because you're interested in Paulding County. I care, and I'm interested in being the Post 1 Commissioner so that I can contribute to the leadership of future progress and development in our county. Just a brief rundown of my experience. 11 years in the corporate world with a major airline, 30 years with the United States Marine Corps with both national and international experience, 23 years with the state of Georgia. Most of that was with the Georgia Department of Transportation in aviation, but I also have a civil engineering degree from Vanderbilt University and had the privilege in 1990 of working on the widening of Highway 278, we call it the Dallas Bypass, and also the Bremen Bypass. The most training, I've been on the board for the airport for 8 years, and the most training I've received is from the lady in the 7th row there with the red blouse and the white spots. She has given me the greatest experience. My wife, Mary Lou, she goes by Lou. I'm excited to have the opportunity to run and to use my decision-making capability, particularly in the military. That's it.
Yes, we have timers down here. I think some of y'all heard the beeping all the way in the back. So the candidates will know, and they're also holding up signs to let them know when they have 15 seconds left. Well, with that being said, let's draw the first question. I need to point out that Ms. Leggett was also invited here tonight, but she was unable to attend. So Mr. Carmichael will not have any rebuttal from the audience. He will answer the questions himself. Unless he wants to rebut himself, he can use his minute or so.
That favorite lady, she probably...
It's like my wife, yes, it's already, absolutely. Over the past several years, Paulding County has seen a decrease in tax collections due to a declining tax digest. In order to balance the budget and maintain the services to the citizens of Paulding County, millions of dollars have been cut from the budget, which includes employee layoffs, reduced or eliminated employee benefits, and furlough days. If property values continue to decrease, what will you do to offset the decline? If the tax digest increases, what would you propose?
It's very important to me in my home county, a beautiful county, and your home county, assuming you live in Paulding County, I'm sure all of you don't, to keep up the services, law enforcement and fire, and to keep up the care that we have here in this county. So I think that we ought to maintain the same amount of tax income, the tax revenue, in whatever means are available in order to not lose any of our services. I would like to see the millage rate reflect. Of course, it's very unusual in the type of economic downturn that we've had to deal with this, and I think it's some of the most difficult decisions that there are to lay off people. I've had to do that in management in several areas, but I think it's been done well and judiciously in Paulding County. the very hard decisions of furlough, and I've been a part of that working state government also. So it gets you in your paycheck, and it gets you, if you lose your job, to where it's very, very difficult. But I think that we've got to maintain the services in Paulding County that everyone expects and that we need to have to continue to be a first-rate location to live, to work, and to play.
Is that fine? Okay. One more question? Should we get the right ball? Your second question, again, there are 2 minutes to respond. Paulding County is pursuing permitting for the Richland Creek Reservoir. How will you move this project forward and secure funding for construction?
Well, our commissioner has revived the Richland Creek Reservoir by getting the state funds that we need to begin. I understand that we've got 650 acres purchased, and it's a 400-acre reservoir that would make us water independent. And you know, we think of quality of life. I don't think anybody in this room would say, we could be 100%, would say, I really don't want a better quality of life. And it wasn't that many years ago, was it, that we had a drought, and we were wondering how we were going to share water with other counties. And right now we get our water from Cobb County, of course. So I'm a proponent of continuing the Richland Creek Reservoir, and it's been revived. I think it's exciting that it has been revived. Being an outdoor person, I think we would all enjoy the reservoir for its recreational benefits also. So if I'm elected as Post 1 Commissioner, I will certainly be for that type of progress in our county to make it an even better, prettier, more beautiful place to live and to be water independent. And we'll just have to look at the financial side of it. I'm not briefed up or, fully knowledgeable of what's there and what the outside costs are going to be at this point. But I'm in favor of it and think it'll just add to the beauty of the county.
Thank you. Since we don't have your opponent is not here to make any comments, you have 1 minute to make closing comments then.
I'm dominating so far. Well, in 33 years in the county, I don't think the same way I did 33 years ago. When we were, I would say, let Dallas, Hiram, Paulding County continue to be a bedroom community where 85% of us drive outside of county lines to bring home a paycheck. But I don't think like that anymore. Hopefully, as we grow and mature, our thinking does change, and I hope there's some wisdom. I am for growth, and I am for development. I want it to be controlled, moderate, well thought out growth, and strategic development. Also, we think about our kids getting older. If Paulding County hadn't grown the way it has, 2 of my children that are teachers in high schools wouldn't have probably had an education job. And, growth means jobs, jobs means work, and work to me is one of the best words there is in the dictionary. To have the opportunity to work and contribute, it adds to the self-esteem of the individual and just their overall contributions. So look forward to growth and prosperity in this county, and just using my leadership experience to make good decisions for all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thought that went pretty well. The next candidates will be facing questions will be for the position of chairman of the Paulding County Board of Commissioners. If those candidates could please come forward. Mr. Austin. Where, probably right here, be a little bit closer. I won't bite. Both candidates were invited to attend today, and Mr. Crow was unavailable. The same rules as before. Mr. Austin, the introduction of 1 minute and 30 seconds. And please, as you make your introductions, please let us know what qualifications you have in your platform, please.
Thank you, Chamber, and thank you, Terry, for hosting and moderating this debate. Thank you to my family and friends for being here. Thank you for your love and your prayers. I'm David Austin. I've been your commissioner for the past 3.5 years. I'm a graduate of Dallas High School and a graduate of the University of West Georgia. I have successfully led Paulding County through this recession, the worst recession since the Great Depression. I've balanced our budget by reducing spending by more than $12 million over the past 3 years, yet still continuing to run an efficient government and continue to keep our AA bond rating. I've completed all necessary paperwork, federal and state, for our reservoir. I've helped with the new Wellstar Hospital replacement. I've led our economic development by organizing a group, and they selected a board and hired a director. I've led the process for Commercial Commerce Park to grow. I've helped Kennesaw and Georgia Highlands campuses locate here. I've helped our county with an opportunity zone that creates 2 or more jobs, allows for tax credits from the state. I have delivered my goals from 4 years ago. I will promise to continue to lead this county, and I have the education and experience in the background for running small and large businesses. I'm the most qualified and proven candidate to lead Paulding County over the next 4 years. I appreciate your vote.
Thank you, Mr. Austin. And again, just as before, I will hold this here and let you pick a question. On July 31st, Paulding County citizens will also vote on the Regional Transportation Referendum. If the voters pass this 10-year transportation sales tax, an estimated $1.5 billion will be raised in Northwest Georgia, with a projected $150 million being invested in 13 specific projects in Paulding County, and an additional $32 million for local discretionary transportation projects throughout the county. Do you support or oppose the adoption of the Regional Transportation Sales Tax, and why?
I think the legislature had a job to do, and they saw how bad our roads and our bridges are in, the congestion on our different roads. They gave this job to the Northwest Georgia Regional Commission, and there's 12 commissions. In the 15 counties, we're the largest county in that 15 county area. With the cities coming together, with the mayors and the commissioners, we put a project list together, and I chaired that committee. It is about commutes, it's about quality of life, and it's about safety. We just, in fact, had to close the bridge on 381, as you probably had experienced, to heavy loads to repair our bridges. These bridges were built in 1940, so we've got to do something about our infrastructure when it comes to roads. I personally will vote for this. I think it's more fair than property tax for this issue, but I honor the wisdom of our citizens to make that decision. Thank you.
Thank you. And as I asked our other candidates, and we'll ask all the others, are you a member in good standing with the Paulding Chamber of Commerce?
Yes.
Good. There's only one left. I just want to pick this up forward. I hate you to get cut on that or something. 45,000 people leave the county each day to work, and Paulding has one of the smallest industrial bases in the northwest region of Georgia. This situation results in a substantial amount of lost revenue to the county. How do you plan to create the required level of jobs, investments, and expansion of the business base needed to ensure a more balanced tax base for Paulding?
After I was elected, but before I took office, I visited with Georgia Tech with their Economic Development Department, and I asked them for help. Then I asked 100 different business people to come together and say, let's put our best minds to this. I couldn't do this by myself. And what we came up with was an economic development board that was selected. That board turned around and hired an economic director, Jamie Gilbert. Jamie has absolutely hit the ground running. It's been phenomenal what he's done. He's brought Envelope Superstore to our county, and he's currently on a mission today. The other thing that we've done besides establishing this board is an opportunity zone. An opportunity zone is granted by the state of Georgia by the Department of Community Affairs. The Department of Community Affairs has you do a pretty extensive in-depth analysis. It takes about 1.5 years to get that. We were just awarded recently that opportunity zone for Dallas and Paulding County. It follows a census tract. What that does for you, if you create 2 or more jobs, it gives you tax credits, and it's for new and existing industry within the opportunity zone. I'm here to announce tonight that MG International, or MGI better known, is in the opportunity zone, and they are planning a major expansion of $9.5 million. So that was news that came to me this afternoon. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about bringing other jobs within the opportunity zone to Paulding County.
Thank you. And since we don't have the other candidate was unable to make it here tonight, for your closing remarks, we have 1 minute for closing remarks, Mr. Austin.
Okay. Thank you this evening for attention to these issues. It's about 4 things. It's about jobs and economic prosperity for our citizens. It's about water. It's about building the Richland Creek Reservoir. It's about education and career training, and we're focused in 3 areas: on health care, with our world-class hospital creating 300 to 500 new jobs, aviation and film and entertainment industry. And lastly, it's about transportation. The future looks very bright for Paulding County, with the new Wellstar Hospital employing 300 to 500 new people, where it will help in hosting several other supporting jobs for this world-class hospital. It takes the right leadership to complete all these tasks, and I ask for your prayers and support to keep Paulding moving. Don't let idle promises replace proven, dependable leadership. Visit us on the web at Paulding.com. I ask for your prayers, and I ask for your vote on July 31st.
Thank you. Now, if the candidates for State Representative District 19 could please come to the stage. If you don't mind, if Mr. James could stand here, and then Ms. Morrison on the middle, and then Ms. Braddock at the far end here. I'll let you know, the process here when we had multiple candidates is that prior to tonight's meeting, they drew straws to find out what order the candidates would go in. And this is 1, 2, and 3. There are 3 questions in the fishbowl here, and each candidate, as I think I mentioned earlier, will be the first one to answer each question. So when we get to the questions, first, Mr. James will answer it, and then Ms. Morrison, and then Ms. Braddock, and we'll go down that order. But again, just as the other one is, the first we're going to allow for 1 minute and 30 seconds of opening remarks from each of the candidates before we get to the individual questions. So if we could start with Mr. James.
I would like to thank the Chamber for sponsoring this event and thank everyone for taking time to hear us today. I have several years of successful experience in developing and acquiring new business as a sales executive for several major corporations. I have several years of successful management and budgeting experience as both a foreman and an operations manager. I feel that my business development skills, management skills, and most recently 7 years as a certified Georgia educator highly qualifies me to represent the District 19 House seat for Paulding County. I have a 4-year college degree in marketing and a master's degree in education. I am uncertain if the other 2 candidates have a 4-year college degree. Our children deserve a highly educated and experienced representative. I know specifically the problems and the solutions that are consistently overlooked and even hidden in our public schools. I have taught in Paulding, Cobb, Polk, and Fulton counties and received many great reviews, commendations, and references. Our incumbent, Paulette Rakestraw Braddock, has been arrested for insurance fraud in 1999 and also arrested for simple assault in 2003. Her failed business, Atlanta Marketing Solutions, was in contempt of court per the United States District Court, Northern District of Georgia, as of May 30th, 2012, or just 21 days ago. I am requesting that she resign her position immediately as our current District 19 House of Representatives, as well as withdraw her candidacy for re-election. While everyone makes mistakes, including me, candidates and elected officials should be held to a higher standard than the voters who elect them. I would always encourage political parties, as well as others, voters, to do criminal background checks on all candidates, including myself, just as employers do.
Thank you, Mr. James. We need to keep the time limit for everyone. Our second candidate is Mrs. Melissa Morrison.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to be here to speak to all of you. I know many of you, and I know that you know me and my husband. We've been here for 30 years in Paulding County. We have a manufacturing facility for many years here. Both of us built this from 1982 until, well, we brought the business here in 1989. We employed 25 employees, and we were doing between $2 and $3 million a year. Most of it was international business. I know how to bring in international business. I know how to go out and find products that need to be manufactured here to produce jobs. I left our manufacturing facility when we closed it down. My husband is a consultant now, but I went to work for the state, where I worked for a little over 5 years, and started out in budget procurement with the state, went to the deputy commissioner's office, and then on to the state veterinarian's office, where I learned about bills, budgeting, and how to manage things at the state level. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. And our third candidate is Ms. Paulette Braddock.
Thank you for everyone for being here and to learn about the candidates, and thank you to the Paulding Chamber for holding this event. I'm Paulette Braddock, your state representative. I've had the privilege of representing you for the past year and a half in the Georgia House. You can count on this. I take my job very seriously. During these tough financial times, my top priorities have been to make Georgia more competitive for jobs and to protect your bottom line. I've done exactly what I promised I would do: focus on tax reform, reduction of government waste, and creation of a strong business climate for job growth. I've been solidly pro-life, pro-Second Amendment rights, and for criminal justice reform. We got some great things done with tax reform this year, but it was just a start. We cut taxes for manufacturers, farmers, and married couples, getting rid of the marriage penalty. There's still much more to do to be done for comprehensive tax reform. I will fight to phase out the state income tax like many of our neighboring states have done and replace it with consumption taxes. Additionally, state government should require less tax to feed it because we passed zero-based budgeting, which drills down into each department's spending to identify waste and duplication of services. Both tax reform and spending reform combine to create an environment friendlier to business, but that's not all we've done. I also serve on the Red Tape Commission that asks business people what state regulations are getting in the way of their success. We'll do everything we reasonably can to reduce the regulatory burden we've placed on our businesses struggling to survive in this economy. While focusing on economic issues that are important...
We need to finish up real quick.
Oh, okay, sorry. That's a snippet of some of the things that I've done, and I don't have time to spit it all out in a minute and a half, so thank you.
Yeah, a minute and a half is very quick. It does pass by very quickly, doesn't it? Again, I want to remind everybody that what the process is that each candidate then will get a question out of the fishbowl here. The candidate, and then we'll go with Mr. James first, and then followed by Ms. Morrison, and then Ms. Braddock. Mr. James and each individual will get 2 minutes to respond to the question. Then the other two candidates will each get 30 seconds apiece, and then it'll come back to the first individual, and they get 30 seconds to respond. So to give you an idea of those who are keeping up with time, that's roughly 3.5 minutes to respond to these questions. And please, I hate to have to interrupt, but when we get in this, so everyone will have a chance to respond, and then when folks get home before midnight, we're going to ask when that beep goes off to finish that sentence, and we need to stop to be able to move on to the next question. So, Mr. James, you will pick the first question. And you have 2 minutes to respond to the question, and each of your opponents will have 30 seconds. Zero-based budgeting requires that the existence of a government program or programs be justified in each fiscal year, as opposed to simply basing budgeting decisions on a previous year's funding level. Supporters see it as a way to uncover waste and duplication, but there is possibly some state programs such as retirement, Medicare, and education will be found underfunded due to statutory requirements. Do you see zero-based budgeting being effective or ineffective, and why? And you have 2 minutes to respond.
I see it as being effective in one way because I know when I did budgeting myself, I know as an operations manager, a lot of times it's easy to take those numbers from last year and just tack on 10% to it, or whatever had gone up over the years. So that's very easy to do, and just expect to be able to tack on the last year's budget. So in that way, I see it could be a problem. As far as affecting retirement, I would, if it got in the way of handling, getting retirement benefits and things like that, it would be very bad. So in a way, it's both good and bad. I hate to straddle the fence, but that, to me, that's not an answer that I can give you, yes, I'm for it, or I'm against it. Zero-based budgeting, I think it has to do more with the politicians looking at the numbers and being realistic and holding themselves accountable as far as what they budget and what they need, and not try to spend at the very last moment. They've got extra money, so they spend everything that they've got before the year's end. Companies do that, governments do that.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Morris, do I need to read the question again, or are you fine with it? And you have 30 seconds.
Zero-based. It is a good idea because it does stop waste. When you go in, you don't just add to your figures the next year. You have to look at what you actually do have. But as far as retirement, that question's out because I have not considered that. That looks like it would be very ineffective on any retirement funds. Being a state employee, I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
Thank you. And Ms. Braddock, you also have 30 seconds.
Yes, I helped get zero-based budgeting passed, and I'm a huge proponent of it because it brings accountability to people's tax dollars, and I think people are demanding accountability for their tax dollars. They don't want it just to go into a black hole where, it's just supporting more government bloat and bureaucracy. So it's a very good program to streamline government and look at areas where we can reduce waste and more effectively use people's money.
Thank you. Mr. James, you have 30 seconds if you wish to rebut any of the statements made.
I really don't, because I think Paulette's got a good point. She's been there and she knows. And I think Melissa's got a good point. And kind of the way I was, I definitely wouldn't want it to affect the state, or county, or city employees.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Morrison will pick the second question. Ms. Morrison, you will have 2 minutes to respond to the question, and then each of the opponents will get 30 seconds to respond, and then you will get 30 seconds at the end to rebut if you choose to do so. Your question is, businesses across most every industry face a wave of new regulation. In some cases, the changes are so extensive that they challenge the viability of some business models. What steps can the Georgia legislature take to reduce the regulatory burden on small business?
Tough question. After being a small business owner for many years, there are regulations that confine small businesses. Bills have to be issued and amended over and over. It cannot be done at a fast pace. In today's economy, it is a strain on small business to have to keep up with the same regulations that a corporation does, that it's a multi-million-dollar corporation. It puts small businesses out of work, puts them out of business. It's important that they're looked at, the state needs to be held and the federal government needs to be held accountable for all of this so that these businesses can continue to not only produce but to prosper. And putting strict regulations on them so they cannot continue to grow is not conservative. It doesn't help us anywhere. We need the jobs, small business, big business. We need to be able to bring in new money, new jobs, and the regulations are killing the small businesses.
Thank you. Ms. Braddock, you have 30 seconds.
Thank you. I served on the Red Tape Committee. It's the Small Business and Job Creation Committee, and we had hearings with all the different business people across the state that represented different industries that came in and told us what regulatory burdens were hindering their ability to do business. And it's going to be a long, drawn-out process to unravel the bureaucracy that we've created over years of federal and state layering of rules and regulations, and it affects the local area too. So I'm proud to have served on that.
Okay. Ms. James?
I feel like there are regulations that don't need to be unraveled at all because they protect individuals. And we all know that companies can take advantage of individuals, right, on that one side. On the other side, there are regulations in there that have nothing to do with protecting the individual rights. So those need to be really looked at and lessened to help that company survive. It's a two-sided coin, in my opinion.
Okay. Ms. Morrison, you have 30 seconds if you wish to rebut any of the comments made by you.
The regulations need to be looked at, but they need to be looked at in a very slow process to not do damage to employees, but to help our small business prosper. The main issue here is jobs, bringing in jobs, and we need new money. And with all these regulations, it is difficult for these small businesses to go out and find business that they can produce to bring in this new money.
Thank you. And Ms. Braddock, I'll go on and draw the last one since there's only one left. And I have failed to ask, so I'll ask each of the candidates, are you a member of good standing with the Paulding Chamber of Commerce?
No, yes.
Okay. Ms. Morris, are you in good standing with the Paulding Chamber of Commerce?
Not right now. I have been for years, but not since I went to work for the state.
Thank you. Ms. Braddock?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Thank you. The third question, and again, Ms. Braddock will be the one who will respond first to this, and she'll have 2 minutes, and then again, the opponents will also have 30 seconds to respond. The question is, what do you see as the top 3 things Georgia could do to jumpstart the economy, unemployment, and the real estate market?
Well, the first stuff that we could make a first step toward is tax reform, comprehensive tax reform. Making our state more competitive is going to be the biggest thing that we can do to bring jobs to Georgia. And we've already started since February. We have, lots of companies that have started coming to Georgia, and that's very encouraging. The second thing is what we're doing with the Red Tape Watch, the Small Business and Job Creation Committee, and that's getting rid of burdensome regulations so that Georgia is a positive business climate. And right now we rank number 5 in a positive business climate because of some of the things that we've done through the competitiveness initiative. And the third thing is solve our water problems. We have to have, and our infrastructure, there's actually several, our infrastructure with transportation and with our water problems, so.
You had 2 minutes, so I didn't want to cut you short. You got it.
I'm saving you time this time.
All right, Ms. James, you have 30 seconds.
I think like Paulette said, to me, the wholesale answer to me is cut taxes. And when I say cut taxes, I don't mean where it's going to hurt the individual. I mean where it's going to attract businesses to the state of Georgia. And I feel like Paulette's on key on that.
Ms. Morrison, you have 30 seconds.
Thank you. Cutting taxes, yes, definitely. New jobs, new money, not money that is recirculated within the county. We have done all of the extensive research and found the needs and what Paulding County has to do. We now have someone that can go out and find these jobs in these emerging markets and bring them back for Paulding. Things that we could produce and sell outside the state, outside the country. New money helps us prosper.
And Ms. Braddock, did you have anything else that you want to say on that?
Yeah, well, I just want to say we made many positive changes in the legislature, starting with the tax reform and taking the energy tax off of manufacturing to bring back manufacturing, and it's working. We've got Baxter International that's making $1 billion investment in Georgia. We just found out yesterday that we were able to keep our AAA bond rating in Georgia, and the Caterpillar moving, it came from Japan, and a lot of people don't realize that they're also moving their supply chain with them. In addition to that list, Toyota's bringing 350 jobs, and there's a long list. So.
Good. Thank you. Okay, and each of the candidates, then now we'll have 1 minute to close, and I'm going to reverse the order. We have Mr. James as first, Ms. Morris as second, Ms. Braddock as third. We're going to just reverse that so that we keep the things flowing. So, Ms. Braddock, if you would make your closing remark for 1 minute, and then Ms. Morrison will have 1 minute to make hers, and then Mr. James 1 minute for his. Thank you.
Okay, I've had a great first term in the legislature. In times of economic upheaval, you need me at the Capitol to fight for you and your interests. I've run a business while raising a family, so I know what you're going through in this economic downturn. We're beginning to succeed in bringing jobs to Georgia, and this is no time to put someone in this position who has to learn the ropes and figure out, how to navigate what happens in the legislature to get things done. And I'm Representative Paulette Braddock. I ask for your vote so I can continue to work hard to bring prosperity back to Paulding County and to Georgia. Thank you.
Thank you. 1 minute, Ms. Morrison.
Thank you. I'm a proud defender of our Bill of Rights as outlined by the Constitution and have shown myself to be an advocate of these rights and fight for these rights. I have learned what needs to be done at the Capitol. I have worked with people at the Capitol for years. I have worked here with manufacturing for years. I can do the job. I can bring new money, new jobs to Paulding County, lower taxes. And again, I ask for your prayers daily, and I thank you for the time.
Thank you. Mr. James?
I guess I keep hearing, and I talked to someone today about taxes, more taxes would do this and that, and even, well, just 2% more tax would do this. But I've been hearing, well, just 2% more tax would do this for several years, and I'm tired of it. I know there's waste in the government, and I'm not going down there to fit in. I will get along, and I'll represent District 19 very professionally. But there are some things that need to change in government and with the wasteful spending that's going on. And I know that I will be an excellent representative for District 19, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give the candidates a round of applause. Could the candidates now for the House of Representatives District 66 please come up to the stage? And again, as before, they drew straws, and the order for these three candidates will be Mr. Mickey Thompson was number 1, Mr. Bob Snelling number 2, and Mr. Mike Miller number 3. And just as you saw before, we'll go back and forth and move down the line so that not the same person goes first and not the same person goes all the time. This time I'm going to ask you all, before we get started, Mr. Thompson, are you a member in good standing with the Paulding Chamber of Commerce?
I was until December the 31st, 2011, when I left office in the city of Douglasville. We were a member in good standing for a number of years, but I am not now.
Snelling?
And I am also not currently a member of the Paulding Chamber.
Okay, and Mr. Miller?
We will be tomorrow. Mr. Law, seriously, my law firm has been based out of Douglas County. We are a member in good standing with the Douglas County Chamber, and we've been very active over the past year with the Paulding County Chamber, and we're welcome to be here today.
You just lose to use a minute of your time. Okay. Again, as before, we're going to ask the candidates to make opening remarks, and each of them have a minute and 30 seconds. And we'll start with Mr. Thompson. And again, please, let's talk about your qualifications and your platform when you make your opening remarks, if you could, please. Minute and a half.
Okay, thank you very much. It's my pleasure to join you this evening in such a beautiful facility. I would like to commend Mayor Austin and those involved in restoring this wonderful theater. Later in this event, I will share with you how important I believe these type projects are to economic development. I am Mickey Thompson, and I am a candidate to represent District 66. My wife Janice is with me this evening, my daughter Starla. And for those of you involved in political life, you recognize how important it is to have a strong family support system. Families are the backbone of this country. We've lived in Douglas County for 40 years. For the past 16 years, I have served in public office, 4 years as a Douglasville City Council member and 12 years as the mayor of Douglasville. I am proud of my accomplishments during that time. This evening, I hope to talk with you about my leadership resulting in the city of Douglasville becoming a city of excellence, a certified city of ethics, how we lowered the property tax rate 18.6%, how we built our cash reserves from $5.1 million to almost $12 million, and how I took a bold leadership role to make Douglasville the leader in retail and commercial growth, really in the western part of Georgia, and how I can work with you to make Paulding County an even better community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Snelling. You have a minute and 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Good evening to you all. In the late 90s, when I served in the Georgia House of Representatives as part of my 8 years, I voted in the Georgia House to repeal the intangible tax. It was repealed and will not return to haunt us again. In that same era, I introduced legislation to significantly roll back the Georgia state income tax. The Democrats who were in control at that time blocked that effort, and it didn't get out of committee. I've now had the opportunity to think about taxes over the last decade and have come to the following position. When elected, I pledged to introduce a revolutionary tax proposal within the first 10 days of the legislative session. My bill would repeal the state income tax and replace it with a consumption-based tax. I'm sure you're familiar with John Linder's fair tax proposal. He's advocating at a federal level. It can work at the state as well. You've heard advocates for it, including Neil Bortz and Herman Cain. The bill would be revenue neutral and would exempt senior citizens in the same way that they are exempt from the income tax now. It would require that some of the tax burden be borne by visitors to Georgia, tourists, illegal immigrants, and the underground economy. Every person in this room would receive a tax cut because the revenue neutral bill will greatly increase the total number of taxpayers while collecting the same amount of revenue.
Thank you.
If this is the approach to tax law you like, please vote for me on July 31st.
Mr. Miller, you have a minute and a half.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Mike Miller. I grew up in Douglasville. I've been there since I was a little kid. I went off to law school and came back because I wanted to represent the folks who I grew up with and the folks of West Georgia. I've been involved with the community since I was a little kid, and currently I sit on the Douglas County Board of Education. Now, just as there are 3 R's in the fundamentals of education, I believe that there are 3 E's in the fundamentals of good government. Those E's are ethics, education, and economy. We live in a new age. This is not a decade ago when we were dealing with certain issues there. We are facing the worst economy that this nation has seen since the Great Depression. And it's going to take a strong, courageous, and person that's full of character to make some drastic changes down in the state legislature so we can move this state forward. First of all, under ethics, this is not just a slogan for me. I've learned in my role as the Board of Education that ethical government is the foundation for good government. My record shows that I'm a stalwart for transparency. I'm also a firm believer in good stewardship of your hard-earned taxpayer money. I'm a proponent of legislative gift caps, but I believe that we must also look further to limit the gratuities and gifts that go to bureaucrats where a lot of waste happens.
Thank you for that quick ending to your response. There are actually 4 candidates for the District 66 seat, and they were all invited to attend, and Kimberly Alexander, who was another candidate, was unable to attend tonight. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the order, as you see up here, is Mr. Thompson first, then Mr. Snelling, and Mr. Miller. So Mr. Thompson will draw the first question. First question. There is an ongoing debate about a $100 cap to lobbyist spending on state legislators. Do you support or oppose the implementation of this cap, and why? Again, you have 2 minutes, and the other gentlemen have 30 seconds, and then we'll come back to you. If you choose for rebuttal, you'll have 30 seconds then, but you have 2 minutes right now to respond.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, the city of Douglasville, during my time as mayor, became a certified, one of the first cities to become a certified city of ethics. Currently, the members of the General Assembly actually operate under a different set of rules than all other elected officials in the state of Georgia, with respect to gifts, with respect to open records, and on and on and on. As a matter of fact, I would support the position of no gifts. You know, I ran for office, this will be my 5th time, and 4 of those times I never took any campaign contributions. And the reason I didn't take those contributions is because a lot of people will come before you with zoning matters and a lot of different things that you have to make decisions on. An individual is not being honest with themselves if they tell you that they will take a major contribution from someone and they can give an unbiased decision when that person comes before you. So my position is there shouldn't be any lobby gifts at all. We should, as members of the General Assembly, restrict ourselves from taking those kind of gifts and gratuities.
Thank you. Mr. Snelling, you're number 2. Would you like me to repeat the question, or are you fine?
I think I understand the question, thank you. In 1999, I attended a conference in Indianapolis, Indiana, entitled the Mayor's Conference for Character. I came home to Douglasville in 1999 and founded the Community Character Coalition of Douglas County and remained the chair of that organization for 10 years because ethics is also important to me. On the specific issue relating to this question, Common Cause Georgia has asked potential legislators to sign the pledge that would limit campaign gifts to $100. I have signed the pledge.
Mr. Miller, you have 30 seconds. Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, Mr. Lawler. Like I said before in my opening, I also signed the pledge. Serving on the Douglas County School Board, I've been very concerned not only about board members taking gratuities when we have almost a $300 million budget at one point in time. That's a lot of money. But I've also, and I don't think we need to stop there with legislators and board members and things of that nature, we also need to look at a bureaucratic limit. And we need some oversight because that is where the taxpayer waste lies. So we need to do even more.
Mr. Thompson, you have 30 seconds if you wish to rebut in the comments.
Okay, no rebuttal, but I would also like to say that along with my other candidates, I have also signed the pledge because I am a believer, as I said earlier, that there is no place for gratuities when you are making decisions for the public.
Thank you. The second question will be Mr. Snelling. You come and pick, please.
There you go.
Again, Mr. Snelling will have 2 minutes to respond, and the other candidates will then have 30 seconds. And the question is? What do you foresee will be the biggest issue facing the General Assembly in 2013? Please explain why you think that and what your reaction will be as it relates to your constituents here in Paulding County. Further, how do you plan to interact with the Paulding Chamber of Commerce in this matter?
Okay, relating to a big issue in the state of Georgia, states around us have already eliminated the income tax. So I'm going to hitchhike on my opening remarks because it fits. The biggest issue that faces the state right now is economic development, tax incentives, and having people who will come to the state to do business here and to live here because it is a business-friendly and a tax-friendly community. Eliminating the income tax, replacing it with a consumption-based tax like the fair tax, will do those things that I said earlier, but it will also insist that that the total number of taxpayers paying into the system will be many more than those who just pay the income tax. And in addition to that, companies will look and see that Georgia no longer has an income tax, and they will come and they will be much more ready to do business in this state as we compete with Florida and Tennessee, which is already there. Okay, relating to Paulding County, I have been meeting people in Paulding County. I've made many efforts so far on hot summer afternoons during the week and Saturday afternoons to talk and speak to people one by one, specifically about Paulding County and how I will be able to listen to them, to hear the needs of the citizens here, so that I can better take ideas that come from all of you and take them to state government and represent you well.
And I'm going to take some moderator's prerogative here.
Please.
And the last part of that question is, how do you plan to interact with the Paulding Chamber on this matter?
On this matter, the Paulding Chamber at the same time will be people that I want to listen to. I drove by there a few weeks ago and went in and met the staff and have interacted with them, and I plan to do more of that. And if elected in office, I certainly will be interacting in the same way that I've been interacting with the Douglas County Chamber for years. Douglas County, because that's where I live and that's where I served before.
Thank you. Mr. Miller.
Well, an overhaul of the tax system and eliminating the income tax is a grand notion. However, we need immediate responses to the problems with our business community. And I think the largest issue facing the business community is the unemployment rate fund balance with the federal government that Georgia has. This fund balance is making our unemployment rates skyrocket, and with that happening, we are not competitive in Georgia with other businesses.
And I'll take moderator's prerogative again. How would you want to react with the Paulding Chamber?
Well, that's kind of a no-brainer. The Paulding Chamber obviously wants lower unemployment rates for their members, and so whatever ideas and suggestions they have toward that. But this is a grand notion. This is a difficult issue that we're facing. And I've already begun interacting with the chamber regarding issues such as this.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you. I'm going to disagree with my colleagues here a little bit on what I think is the most important issue. To me, the most important issue facing all of us in this theater tonight and all of us in Georgia is the economy and jobs. And how are we going to get Georgia back on track from the standpoint of economic viability? How do we bring companies? How do we recruit companies? How do we position ourselves to be the front runner in bringing companies in? A system of verification on incentives. And I will end by saying how I would deal with the Chamber of Commerce and Paulding County. We heard a little bit earlier that Mr. Gilbert, your executive director for your new development authority, I brought him to Douglasville from South Carolina. So you guys got a good find, you got a good future as a result of him. But working with Jamie would be, and the Economic Development Department would be key. But along with that comes the Chamber of Commerce. I mean, I see those kind of intertwined together.
Snelly, you have 30 seconds if you choose to.
Okay. And I would just like to say that it sounds like we're in basic agreement here. I would start with a tax break. I think the tax break and the consumption tax would attract economic development. I'm a retired Delta pilot and a current flight instructor, and we literally, because of the tax policy in Georgia, drive retired pilots out of the state of Georgia to live in Florida and to live in Tennessee because of the tax structure. And I know that the same situation exists as it relates to businesses. When we change the tax structure to be more business friendly, that will solve the economic problems as well.
Thank you. Final question, Mr. Miller, I can get this for you, unless you really want it. It's not as exciting as it looks. Trust me.
You do it so well.
Yeah. It takes practice. And your question is, again, you'll have 2 minutes to respond. A Georgia Charter Schools Amendment will appear on the November 2012 ballot as a legislatively referred constitutional amendment. The measure gives the state legislature the right to create special schools. Do you support or oppose this amendment? Actually gives the state school board. Do you support or oppose this amendment, and what effect will it have on Paulding County schools and the overall state education system?
Well, I've been on the fence on this issue at one point in time. But the fact of the matter is that our parents and our teachers need to be the ones who determine how we educate our children. We need alternatives to the system to provide the best education possible. Now, I'm a firm believer in the public education system. I'm a product of the Douglas County school system, and I think I've done pretty well. In fact, I grew up pretty poor, and the public school system is a great equalizer. But through serving on the Douglas County Board of Education, I've realized that our charter schools they are public schools, first of all, and they add a fundamental basis of education to certain children who will thrive in that environment. So it's important that we have these alternative education systems in our state. Now, what happens though is that there's somewhat of an inherent conflict of interest when boards of education and systems, districts, make a recommendation, because what happens is those charter schools actually pull control and funding away from the public school system. So I think we need to be very careful in how we develop a charter school system, but we do need these alternatives. And we've got to start thinking outside the box for education. Georgia is in the bottom tier of education, and that directly affects economic development, and it directly affects graduation rates, and it directly affects the prosperity of our state. So we need alternatives, whether it be 21st century virtual schools, or whether it be charter schools, or whatever it may be that suits the needs of your child. That's what we need to do. And if it's an amendment that we have to allow the state to allow charter schools when districts may not, then that's an important advantage to the state, and I support that.
Mr. Thompson, you have 30 seconds.
I support local control, first of all, and taxpayer dollars, in my opinion, should not go to private companies to operate private schools, and that's what I'm seeing a lot of. We need to meet and those private schools need to meet the same basic standards, requirements that the public schools must meet. Options are good. We need options. We need all the various education opportunities we can provide for our students.
Thank you. And Mr. Snelling, you have 30 seconds.
Singing in the barbershop quartet, I have learned the value of competition. Competition raises the standard. Charter schools are one form of competition in education, still publicly funded, still available to those who apply. So I support the amendment, particularly because it's not an unfunded financial mandate for the state. I think it's a good idea.
And Mr. Miller, you have 30 seconds if you wish to make further comments.
Charter schools are important because they allow for certain individual students to deviate from the mandates that come from the state. So whether it be through a charter school amendment, and it's a shame we have to do a charter school amendment to allow charter schools to exist. So while I do support local control of funding and dollars, it is important that we do have alternatives when a district or a board may not be amenable to a charter school system.
Thank you. And again, as we did in the time before, this time for closing comments, I'm going to reverse the order. And so the first individual to make closing comments will be Mr. Miller, followed by Mr. Snelling, and then Mr. Thompson. And each of you will have 1 minute to make your closing comments, please.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the Paulding County Chamber for hosting this event and allowing us to come here and get to know you a little bit better. And thank you, Mr. Lawler, for moderating in a very fine manner. I would also like to thank your district attorney, Dick Donovan. I've known Mr. Donovan for several years, and he has endorsed my campaign, and I thank him for that. I would also like to thank your school board chairman from the Taylor Farm Park, I'm sorry, not chairman, but school board member from the Taylor Farm Park District, Nick Chester, who has also endorsed my campaign. I've been involved in Paulding County. I've been involved in Douglas County for several years. I'm a member of the Douglas County Bar. I'm a member of the Paulding County Bar. I have the experience in law. I represent people every day, and I represent them dealing with the laws that our legislature pass. I do this every day. I've been doing this every day for the last 13 years, protecting businesses and protecting individuals from the laws that are passed. I look forward to representing you and ask you for your prayers and ask you for your vote on July 31st.
Thank you, Mr. Snelling.
You're ready, okay. I served in the legislature for 8 years and I have experience. On July 4th, 1776, the Declaration of Independence was adopted by the Continental Congress and signed by 56 of our nation's founders. It contained these well-known words. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. A vast majority of the 56 signers of the document were believers, and most of them Christians, as am I. I have come to know my faith as a worldview that applies to all of life, as did our founders. They knew that the rights delineated in the Declaration were not granted by political powers or governments. Rather, they knew that our liberty and freedom were given to us by the author of our faith. I have lived out my faith for almost 40 years, have encouraged other Christian leaders to do the same all across the United States. Please vote for me so that I can carry that worldview into state government and apply that kind of thinking to every proposal that will cross my desk. God bless you all.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
Well, thank you. It has truly been my pleasure to join you tonight. This election is about who is the most qualified candidate and has the experience to create jobs and economic development in Paulding County. While in office, you heard me say earlier, we started one of the first city development authorities in the state of Georgia, and we hired Jamie Gilbert, your executive director. We were tremendously successful with him, and Paulding County's future is bright also with him. I want to help you in your continued quest for excellence. I want to be your partner at the Capitol when working with the Georgia Department of Economic Development. Together we can do great things for Paulding County. Please elect me, Mickey Thompson, your most qualified candidate as state representative for District 66. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. There's also another House race here in Paulding County for District 67. Mr. Bill Hembry is one of the candidates, as well as Ms. Lee McCurdy. Neither one could make it here tonight, so what I thought I would do is I would take their questions and answer them for you. Yes? No. Okay. The next seat that we have open for with the candidates tonight is for the Georgia State Senate District 31. Would Mr. Bill Heath, Mr. Bill Caruth, and Mr. Jason Rogers please come to the podium. And again, as before, straws were drawn earlier. Mr. Rogers drew number 1, Mr. Caruth drew number 2, and Mr. Heath drew number 3, so they will go in that order. as we address them with the questions, and they also make their opening comments. Again, before we get started, let me ask the same question as we have of everybody else, starting with Mr. Rogers. Are you a member in good standing with the Paulding Chamber?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Mr. Cruth?
Yes. Actually, for several generations.
All right.
A couple anyway.
You have multiple generations. That's good. Okay. And Mr. Heath?
Yes.
All right, great. Well, gentlemen, again, with the opening comments, so Mr. Rogers will go first, and each candidate will have 1 minute and 30 seconds for their self-introduction. And please, again, talk about your qualifications and your platform with your opening remarks, if you could, please.
Yes, sir. Recently, Caterpillar decided to come to the state of Georgia. While I'm thankful for the 1,400 jobs that they're bringing, it cost $75 million to bring Caterpillar here. What I want you to remember is, before Caterpillar was big, they were small. Before Delta, Coca-Cola, and Home Depot were big, they were small. A great example of that is Facebook. Before they were a $100 billion company, there were 2 young men in a dorm room that had a vision and a dream of being successful. I'm for big business, but I want to focus on small business and entrepreneurs. Next, we need to focus on local control of education to provide for a more educated workforce for our current and future businesses. In addition, we need to get public safety the tools and resources they need to protect us. Finally, we need to get value for your tax dollars. As an Army officer and chief investigator, I make plans that work. I have a plan that will create jobs and restore your property values, helping you to recoup tens of thousands of dollars of lost equity. I'm J.K. Rogers, and I have a plan that I can implement right now for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Caruth?
Good evening. I want to thank the Paulding County Chamber of Commerce, Terry Lawler, our moderator, and to all of you for attending. I'm Bill Caruth, and I want to be your next state senator because the 31st District needs strong conservative leadership and someone responsive to your needs. While serving as Paulding County's first Republican Commission chairman, I cut taxes, improved infrastructure, reduced waste, created jobs, and brought a business-like approach to county government. While serving on the Georgia Department of Natural Resources Board, I helped purchase over 7,000 acres in Paulding County for permanent green space protection. I've spent most of my adult life owning and operating small businesses. It's time we put government back in the hands of the people it's supposed to represent, not in the hands of lobbyists contributing hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep legislators in office and providing expensive perks to buy their vote. As your senator, I'll listen to you and work to fix your problems. We have to create jobs, and I'm the only one in this race with a private business experience to do that. We have to eliminate unnecessary regulations that tie the hands of our job creators. I'll introduce legislation to eliminate the state income tax, to take the burden off the job creator and the wage earner. If Tennessee and Florida can do it, Georgia can do it also. I look forward to discussing the issues facing our community with you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caruth. Mr. Heath?
Thank you. Well, good evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Bill Heath. It's been my great honor to serve you in the state senate for the last 8 years. My wife Susan is here with me tonight. We've been married for 30 years. She's the mother of our 2 children, and I hope you'll welcome her as well. Friends, did you know that Georgia has a better credit rating than the federal government? Through this recession, Georgia has been one of the few states able to maintain its AAA bond rating, and that is saving us millions of dollars each year. That didn't happen by accident. It's because Governor Deal, myself, and other conservative Republican leaders have been putting our conservative values into action. It's not a big secret that times are tough for all of us, but I believe it takes conservative leadership, not arrogant politicians, to get our economy moving again. While others talk about being effective, I've been working hard to cut taxes, cut government spending, and get our economy moving again. I'm here tonight to ask for your vote with a simple but solemn oath. to keep providing the same rock-solid conservative leadership that you can trust. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, the same program is the way it's run with the other candidates, and the first individual that will pick a question out will be Mr. Rogers. 76% of Paulding County residents leave the county each day to work. Paulding has one of the smallest industrial bases in the northwest region of Georgia. What can the state legislature do to create jobs, investments, and business expansion for Georgia, and more specifically for Paulding? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, I don't believe everything is solved by legislation. We have some issues in this county. As an example, we have over 6,000 vacant lots. The first thing that we need to do is to sell all this excess inventory that we have. We need to get a plan in place, which I have, that can do that. What that'll do is it'll bring the property values up, and it'll allow us to hire people closer to home. Also, it'll attract people to our homes, especially with the low interest rates that we have right now. These are things that can be implemented right now. We also need to develop, again, our small businesses. We don't need to go out to other places to bring people here. We have talent in this room and in this county. We just need to help develop it. Just as an example, just like the Atlanta Braves, they did not start winning until they developed their farm team. We have the talent right here, and we need to develop it. And when we do that, we will be successful. And that's offensive in nature and not just sitting back and only cutting taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ruth, you have 30 seconds.
Well, the state needs to provide a pro-business environment, and to do that, we need to cut the state income tax. We need to reduce unnecessary regulations, and we also need to offer competitive incentives when we're vying for companies that are looking at surrounding states.
Thank you. Mr. Heath, you have 30 seconds.
Thank you. I think the number one thing we do to recruit jobs, not only to Paulding County, but to Georgia, evolves around tax policy. You gotta have sound tax policy. You gotta have good fiscal management of your resources. And this is not only at the state level, but also at the local level. It's very important that we keep our local property taxes as low as possible. And that was one of the things that we heard whenever we went around the state asking folks what we could do to make the environment more competitive.
Thank you. You have 30 seconds if you'd like to make some additional comments.
Yes, sir. We're the worst in the country in creating jobs. That's a fact. Not only are we the worst, we're double the 49th state. We've lost over 351,000 jobs. Cutting taxes is a component of bringing business here, but it's not the only component. We have to continue to cut taxes, but we also need to get offensive, and we need to grow our businesses, and we need to grow it locally.
Thank you. Mr. Kruth, you get to pick the second question.
I'll let you pick.
Thank you. And you have two minutes to respond to this. It has been said that the transportation SPLOST on the July ballot is as significant to Georgia's economy today as Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport was when it was envisioned. Do you support the T-SPLOST? And if not, how will you move forward in solving Georgia's transportation problems?
Well, this is probably the worst format to get asked that question. But those people who know me, I think, or most of you here, I don't change my answers because of the format I'm in. No, I don't plan to support it, but I want to qualify that a little bit. I want to thank the people that were involved in the process, people like Chairman Austin who chaired the committee, people, the mayors, the planners, the DOT directors, the city councilmen, all the people that put the project list together, spent their time and was devoted to putting the project list together. Unfortunately, I think the project list comes up short. I think we don't get dollar for dollar return on our money. I recognize that Georgia has got to solve its transportation problem. It's going to choke our economy, but I think there are better funding solutions than this huge tax that'll be on the referendum in July.
Okay. Mr. Heath?
It's a great question, and it's a very important question because you all are going to be asked to vote yes or no on July 31st. If you vote yes, you will vote for the largest tax increase in the history of Georgia to the tune of about $1 billion for the Northwest Georgia District. Now, earlier today, I was sitting and listening to another forum or another candidate up here talking about a bridge that needed to be replaced because of a weight problem. That bridge is not on the list of projects to spend this money on. So I think there's some serious problems about the design of this, and I welcome the opportunity to give that further thought.
Well, I got to really talk fast, Mr. Lawler. I really want to be for this. I really want to be for it, but I just can't, and I'll tell you why. As just one example, if Paulding passes it and Cobb doesn't, you've got 4 lanes on Macklin Drive going into 2 lanes in Cobb County. That just doesn't make any sense. Until leaders from across the district and across the state agree to work together, it's just not going to work. As an example, Atlanta, their SPLOST would put people on trains. It could be a good idea, but they don't want to ride the trains. It won't work.
Mr. Cruth, you have 30 seconds if you want to make any more comments as well. Okay. Mr. Heath, you want me to draw this one for you?
Can you handle that?
That's about all I can do.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
And as I said, I'm Johnny Carson, and the final question. There has been legislation introduced and an ongoing discussion over the past few years about limiting lobbyist expenses on legislators. Do you believe the existing ethics laws are adequate, or are some changes needed? Please explain your answer. And again, you have 2 minutes.
I think I can get done in less than 2 minutes on this. The number one thing that we can do in Georgia and in America to enact better ethics in government is to elect ethical people. You've got to elect people who can behave themselves not only in their personal lives and their professional lives, but when they get in office. Now, are there things that can be done in law to minimize the exposure that politicians have? Sure. But if you think that you can pass laws to make good people out of bad people, it'll never happen. I will support meaningful ethics reform.
Okay. As far as you have 30 seconds.
Well, we're 50th out of 50th in ethics. I don't know that I can say much more. What I can tell you is if you go to my Elect J.K. Rogers website, you'll see how I stand on that. The maximum donation for my campaign is $1. So I don't know what else I can say to you about that. We've got people in this room that have actually tried to donate more than $1 and they can't. And I believe your story is as important as your story, as important as your story. And by only giving $1, that shows that commitment. Thank you.
Mr. Crew?
Yes, it needs, it's not adequate. No, it's not adequate, and our ethics reform does need reforming. If you could see some of the hundreds of thousands of dollars that are spent on campaigns and the number of perks that are spent on meals and tickets and hunting trips and things like that, I think you'll understand that you don't need those type of relationships in order to cast a vote. Lobbyists serve a purpose, and you can be educated by both sides of any issue, but you don't have to take thousands of dollars from somebody to get educated.
Thank you. Mr. Heath, you have 30 seconds if you wish to say anything else on that. Okay. Again, this is the time for the closing comments from each candidate. We'll reverse the order. So Mr. Heath will be making the first closing comments, followed by Mr. Carruth and Mr. Rogers. And each one of you gentlemen will have 1 minute each for your closing comments. Mr. Heath.
Thank you. Folks, every day I'm at the Capitol, and every vote I cast, I think about what's best for you and for our families. I'm not into political games or backroom deals. Just ask the other elected officials. They know me. They'll tell you Bill Heath is a rock-solid conservative. You don't need another politician whose professional and personal lives will embarrass us. You deserve a senator who is honest, conservative, and will never waver in doing the right thing for you. That's the senator I've proven myself to be. If you have any questions about me or my record, I hope you'll email me at billheath@billheath.net or call me at my home, 770-537-5234. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. If you will trust me again with your vote, I will keep delivering this same kind of rock-solid conservative leadership that you can trust and rely upon. I ask for your prayers and your vote. If you'd like to learn more about me, please go to billheath.net. Thank you, God bless you, and good night. Mr. Cruz.
Ronald Reagan asked the voters in 1980, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? I invite you to do the same. Are you better off? Do you want more of the same? If so, you should vote to keep our current senator of 8 years. I believe we can do better. Do you believe we need new conservative leadership that will be responsive to you and not to the lobbyists that wine and dine our officials with dinners and trips and contribute hundreds of thousands of dollars to their campaigns? Do you believe we need a business owner, not a career politician, to put people back to work? Do you believe that we need less state government and more local control? Do you believe that we have too many regulations that keep us from doing things that we all need to be done? Do you believe our government spends entirely too much of your money on programs we don't need? And do you believe that we need to eliminate the state income tax? If so, then send a message with your vote on July the 31st that says you want a new state senator that will give you better representation, and that person is Bill Caruth. Thank you, and God bless you.
Mr. Rogers.
Sir, and the Paulding Chamber, thank you for this opportunity to speak. If you're tired of being last in the job creation in the country, 48th in the nation in education, having the highest number of foreclosures in the nation, tired of politicians that will only listen to you if you donate a lot of money, take a look at my ideas to make things better for you. My maximum contribution to my campaign is $1, and my commitment to you is I will tell your story fairly and equally, even if you don't have a lot of money. I will stay in contact with you, and I will respond to your needs. I am J.K. Rogers, and I appreciate your support on July 31st. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. And let's also take this opportunity to thank all the candidates who came here tonight to speak. Again, the fact that you all came out here to hear what our candidates had to offer for us gives us all an opportunity to hear their ideas, but